I just demonstrated how to change a bunch of functions with macros. But I would say the more modern and effective way to do that these days is to use AI. So let's bring out the AI panel here. I'm going to press :AI, nice command, to bring this out. Hi, so I'm a heavy Vim user. I've been using Vim for a good 15 years as my only editor. I shunned IDEs, etc., and I like Vim because it was fast and because it was powerful. I was so excited about it that I created a bunch of YouTube videos on my own channel, Semicolon and Sons, about it. However, I tried out Zed pretty recently and decided that I preferred to Vim. So I wanted to communicate what it was that I liked about Zed, so that if you're in a similar position to me and frustrated at certain aspects of Vim, like the config and maybe it's lacking AI power, then maybe you could benefit from at least seeing what Zed can do in the hands of a heavy Vim user. The reason why the hands of a heavy Vim user is a relevant piece of information here is because Zed has an extremely powerful Vim mode, and it makes the transition between both editors quite easy. I'm going to do this video by showing you a bunch of features that you would use in a day-to-day basis when coding. And I'm going to try to avoid using the mouse, and I'm also going to use Vim key bindings whenever possible. Okay, let's dive into it. We've got a new instance of Zed open here. So I'm going to check out my most recent projects and go to Couchers. Now, the bread and butter of any editor is being able to find things quickly. So I'm going to first demo Command P to find any file in the project, and going to look up, for example, the routes.ts. Let's get that one open. And I'm also going to look up a models.py. The reason for me wanting to open up a TypeScript and also a Python file is because this is going to load up the language server protocol and power the command T search, where I can look up any symbol in the system. So now I can look up the home component, for example, and that will bring me directly there. Similarly, I can do the same thing and look up, for example, the reference class in Python, or I can also look up any other symbol. For example, should report is a method definition. Something I want to emphasize here is that this is really fast. I've tried this on a 1,000,000-line code base at my day job, and it works just as fast as you've seen here. Another thing that's cool is that this searches across all initialized languages rather than having to do one language at a time, which is a problem I often have with language server protocol. Something else I want to emphasize here is that all this works with zero config. This works right out of the box when you install Zed. I didn't have to do anything. I presume this works for many other languages too, and I found that very refreshing. Something else I like here is that there are these breadcrumbs at the top of the file here. So I can see I'm in the reference class and in this particular file. I can click that and go there, and you see this nice outline, and I can see what else is in this particular file. I can also trigger the same outline with Command-Shift-O, and then kind of go up and down easily and see what's available. That's a nice little feature. Also works straight out of the box. Speaking of navigating your way around a code base, something that's very often useful to do in a work context is to send a link on GitHub to a particular line of code. Zed makes this very easy out of the box with basically : copy link. I can press that and I can see it's in the paste buffer. When I looked up that copy link command, I initiated the search by typing : which brings up a fuzzy search for all the commands in Zed. This is a really nice feature. It's great for discovering what's available, and also it means you don't have to remember the exact wording of any given command. So let me show you a few examples. I can go to the place to open up extensions. You can also learn the keyboard shortcuts here. Or I can look up some particular logs about Zed's internals. Or, okay, let's say I've got this word here. Maybe I want to change the case. Let's see if it can do kebab case. Yeah, editor convert to kebab case. Very nice. Yeah, you get the picture. This is a really nice way to discover what's available. In fact, let me undo that right now. In fact, I can just type a prefix and see, for example, everything associated with Vim or everything associated with Zed, etc., etc. Next, I want to demo more of the language server protocol stuff. So I'm just going to go to the top of the file now and then call a function that does not exist. And you can see it's underlined in red. And if I go up here and I press square brackets D, I'll go to the next diagnostics. You can see that the linter is complaining that it's undefined. And in fact, also pi right, the LSP is complaining. That's really cool. I'm going to delete this. And then I'm going to show you go to definition, but in the context of a project import. So GD, and I'm right there. Let me try that with a library import. Let's see how it does on this one here. Excellent. This is something quite cool because I often find in Vim with LSP, it's difficult to go to library definitions. I've certainly found that very fiddly and or slow. And this just works right out of the box. And I can use the standard Vim Control O to jump back to the original file here. Next, let's demo another aspect of the language server protocol. Let's go to all references of this symbol with G capital A. Now we're looking at something called a multi-buffer. We can see extracts of this particular symbol in each file. I can use the star operator from Vim to travel between them, to travel between each file like this, which is really cool. Something else I can do is I can fold all of these. That's Z capital M to fold them all, so you can see each particular file. And then Z capital OR opens them all. Something else I can do is go into a particular file with G space and see that particular constant or symbol in use there. I can do Control O to go back to this view. And something really wild here is I can make edits in each one and then save them all with, for example, W all, and then undo. And I can undo across all files like that. Also save again. Lastly, I can copy and paste things between each file like this, which is also really cool. That multi-buffer view is also used heavily in the project-wide search or project-wide search and replace. So let me first quickly demonstrate the local search, which is just a slash as you'd expect in Vim key bindings. And if I look up date within here, I can press N to go to the next entries and capital N to go backwards. But we don't want that, so I'm going to escape out of that. And now I'm going to go into the global find or find and replace view with G slash. I can also escape out. I can close this down and do the same thing with Command Shift F, which is familiar for a lot of people. I know it's not Vim key bindings, but like everyone knows that. Now that we're in the project-wide search and replace view, let's give ourselves a goal. My goal is going to be to replace anything that has datetime underscore X with time underscore X. So the first thing I want to do is ensure that it is case sensitive. So that's going to be Command Alt C. The next thing I want to do is make sure that regex is enabled. It's actually currently enabled. You can see this over here, but just trigger it on and off there. And now I want to capture what's in here. One cool thing about Z is that it uses normal regex syntax rather than the special Vim one. And I really appreciate it. It makes everything a lot easier to remember. Now I'm going to trigger the replace view. I'm going to do time underscore and $1 to use what's captured here. And yeah, let's trigger that search and see what happens. Okay, and now let's replace all matches. Very cool. Of course, in real life, you'd probably use something like language server protocol change definition, but perhaps there are cases when you can't really do that. By the way, also, you might want to filter to certain file types. That's possible here, and it works as you'd expect. From the context of this multi-buffer, I can again save all at once, or I can undo all at once, just like that. I wanted to mention too that some of the little touches on this project-wide search and replace are also really nice. For example, if I go back up to this menu and press up, it brings me to my previous searches. Next, I want to demonstrate how Git integrates into Z. So I'm going to show the vim command, whole file, substitute, column with, for example, row global. And you can see this was changed throughout the whole file. But more importantly, for what I'm trying to demo now, you can see these solid lines of yellow on the side, and this means it has the potential to be staged. If I press D capital O, it actually gets staged and staged in Git. And if I do the same again, it gets unstaged. I can also do D lowercase o to see a particular diff. and then decide what to do. And then I can also navigate between each of these chunks with square brackets C, just like you can do in popular Vim plugins for Git. I want to demo how Git works project-wide rather than just in a particular file. So I'm going to switch context to one of the tabs using Control Tab. I also see I want to get rid of this uncommitted changes one. And let me go to the unsubscribe file and make a arbitrary change here. I'll save it. And now I'm going to bring up the global Git sidebar with :git. I just type :g and enter, thanks to the fuzzy search. And now I'm in this context. I can kind of go up and down. I can use the standard Vim shortcuts, for example, Control W and then L to go across to this window again. And then same thing in reverse to get back over here. Press enter on a particular file, etc., etc. Within here, I can then do operations on the entire change set across all files at once. For example, with Command Control Y, I can stage all. I can undo that by adding Shift. Let's do that for real. And then I can bring up the commit message input with Command Enter. And then I press Alt Tab and get AI generated. You can see it here. Okay, that's a little bit too much for me, but yeah, whatever. It's still a good start. And I can commit that again with Command and Enter, just like that. You can see now that there's the option to push, and the shortcut is given here, as always. Next, let's clean up our workspace and look at some of the pure Vim features. So I'm going to close this particular sidebar with Command B, and then do, for example, Command W to close some of these unused files, just like that. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is convince you that most of the normal Vim key bindings that you use day to day are present in Z. So I'm going to start by going to the top of the file with GG. I'm going to press 4J to go down here, and I'm going to do VI and then parentheses to select within parentheses. I can press D to remove it, U to undo. I'm going to go back up to this parentheses and then press %sign to go to the other matching one. I'm going to leave a mark here, B, and then go to the end of the file. And then I'm going to go to that mark with backtick B, and I'm back up there again. Let's look at some register stuff next. So I'm going to put just this line underneath into the default register with double Y. And then I'm going to take this one and put it into register 2 by typing double quotation mark 2 YY. Now I can type registers, just like in Vim, and see what's there. So the default one has the SQL Alchemy import, and number 2 has the Couchers import. I can then use these, for example, in insert mode by pressing Control or 2 or Control or quotation mark for the default one. Z has the concept of vertical and horizontal splits, just like Vim. So I can type vsplit or VSP, and we get one of them. I can do a regular split, SP. I can navigate between these with the usual keyboard shortcuts. And if I want to focus on just one, I can type only, just like in Vim as well. Let's go to an arbitrary line here with :1000. And now I want to navigate by one class at a time. So I'm going to press double square brackets. And you can see this moves up one class. And if I do the same in the opposite direction, it moves down one class. I can do the same for methods with square bracket M. And you can see it moves by one method. And I can do the same in the other direction as well. Similarly, I can use some great built-in text objects, i.e. noconfig, to do things like change inside function or to delete a function. All right, let's go to the first squiggly brackets with T and the squiggly bracket. Now I'm going to show something else I quite like. So I'm going to, first off, visually select inside the squiggly brackets. Now I'm going to select the next largest syntactical block with square bracket X. And you can see now it's got the whole string, now it's got the inside of the function, now it's got the function itself, now it's got the inside of the class, now it's got the whole class. This is all really nice because then I can do things like, I don't know, press X to delete the entire thing. Again, I want to emphasize that this comes built in with no config and presumably is available in many other languages. I was surprised to see that relatively small features are also included. For example, I'm going to create some numbers that are out of order, and then I'm going to select them all, VAP, select paragraph, and then pipe it through to the sort command. I don't know if pipe is the right word, but there's the visual selection there, and then I press :sort, and it will sort them. There's also other things like the increment command. That's all built in, surprisingly. Just undo all that. Net or W is also here in some form. So I type : and then explore. I think I need to do capital. Yeah, okay. And you can see this opened up in the sidebar. Press enter to go to a different file. Let me go back over there. Press D to create a new directory. I don't want to do that. Percentage to create a new file. Press minus to go up to the parent folder, etc., etc. A lot of the commands you know from Vim, net or W, are also available here. Just wanted to show you that. Okay, I'm going to close that sidebar, Command B, and visit the file crypto.py and use the outline tool to find B64 encode. And I'm going to demonstrate a macro here. Okay, I'm going to hit Q twice to begin recording a macro in the Q register. You can see at the bottom of the screen that's recording at Q. Press W to go to the start of the next word. Now I'm going to yank up to the opening parenthesis. And I'm going to go down to the next line and go directly into insert mode with O. Type print and quotation mark, then control or quotation mark, and then I'm going to press escape to go out of here and go to the next method definition with square bracket n. Now I'm going to end the macro by pressing Q, and I'm going to attempt to rerun it with @Q. This time it used a different method name, decode, instead of encode. Run it again. And you can see I can just keep repeating this as I like. Okay, let's restore the file to its original state. I just demonstrated how to change a bunch of functions with macros. But I would say the more modern and effective way to do that these days is to use AI. So let's bring out the AI panel here. I'm going to press :AI, nice command, to bring this out. Now, the first thing I want to do is tell the AI what files it should look at. And that's going to be Command-Shift-A. I'm going to choose the most recently open file here. There are other options down here. Now, I press escape to go back to insert mode. By the way, this has Vim mode as well. I'm now kind of in normal mode. I can go back into insert mode. Anyway, I'll just ask it to do what I wanted. Can you print the name of each function before calling it? The next thing I want to do is choose which model I want to use. The shortcut for that is Command Alt and slash, I believe. And I'm using one that comes via Z. You can support the project and they will provide a model for you if you've got a billing relationship with Z. Alternatively, you can have a billing relationship directly with one of the model providers and get API keys that way, whatever you prefer. So I'm going to choose, let's say, Claude Sonnet 4 and hit enter and see what happens. Okay, we can see it thinking as it goes along. And then there's this nice visual buffer showing me the changes it's making as it's making them. And something I like is that it's done things in a cleaner way than I would have with a macro. It's created a proper Python decorator and is using that instead. Now, it's a bit slower, but it's also changing the entire file, which I didn't do. I don't need to see the whole thing, so I'm going to stop it here. And then it has a bunch of changes, and I can decide whether to keep each one piecemeal or the whole lot of them with like Command-Shift-Y. Okay, I'm going to create a new AI thread and then demonstrate something else. So something I often need to do is to ask AI to explain how a certain piece of code works. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Can you explain how? And now I type symbols to pick a symbol. Let's say I want to understand B64 decode. oops, I mistyped, B64 decode, and it comes up there. You can see that the AI is in write mode, and I want to switch that to ask mode so that it doesn't potentially go haywire and start changing files as these models, current models tend to do. Something I like about this is that it's built into the editor and you don't have to copy and paste a bunch of code into ChatGPT or whatever. And also has access to the whole code base. So if it needs to read other functions in order to understand that function, for example, as might happen in a large legacy code base, it's able to do that. All right, I'm going to start yet another thread here and demonstrate something else. So let me jump back to this tab here and go to the bottom of the file. Okay. I'm going to show probably my favorite type of context management that Zed has. So first I select all these constants, and now I press Command Shift and greater than symbol. And you can see that it's just selected those particular lines. I really like this because it's so targeted, and a problem I had with other editors was being able to tell them precisely which parts of the code to take into account and which ones not. This more than anything tends to steer the AI in the right direction. So I'm going to ask the AI, are any of these constants used in this code base? If so, can you show them in context? This is demonstrating agentic flows, which is when a model has the power to call certain tools, for example, some regex stuff. If I were in write mode, it would have the power to change files and do other things, maybe call some bash commands, etc. All right, a lot of content here. It's actually faster than I can read, so let's scroll up and see what it's doing. So unsubscribe key name equal unsubscribe. And they've listed a bunch of other files. This is another really nice thing about Zed is that it's all kind of integrated. I can get this, I can copy this link to it. I can presumably click into this file. I don't do that now because it would disrupt the flow of the video. And this just makes it so much easier to refactor. I can see it all here, or I could switch the agent to write mode and actually make a change. I've just demoed the AI tab, but that's not where AI ends in the Zed editor. So I'm going to close this one with Command R this time for that tab. And then define a function, define heads or tails, or rather start the function definition. And you can see that it suggests a way to do this function. If I press tab, it will complete it. So something that I don't like about that flow here or in other editors is that it can't read your mind. It doesn't know specifically how you want your heads or tails function to look. So with that in mind, I'm going to delete inside this function, and I'm going to trigger the inline AI input with Control X, Control A, and then tell it specifically how I want this function to work. So I'm going to say I am running an unfair casino. I want the heads or tails to get 1% more unfair with each flip. Now I'm going to choose a different model as well. Gemini is enjoyable, but it tends to write too much comments, so I'm going to go back to Sonnet 4. Let's see how it does. All right, awesome. It did seem to make a small mistake with the indentation, but I think that was because I set that tool up in the wrong place, but I can quickly fix that with the standard Vim indent less than or greater than symbols. All right, next I want to demonstrate the debugger functionality in Zed. The current open source project I'm looking at is a little bit heavyweight to get running. Therefore, I'm going to rely on AI again to create a mini project that's easier to work with. So let me prompt it. Create a script in a single file called todos.py that can be called with todos.py add my to do and list as well. Removing to-dos is not necessary. we're currently in ask mode with the AI, so I'm going to switch it up to write mode, and then let's see what happens. It's a little bit weird creating a video with AI functionality because you never really know exactly what it's going to do. So I might have to improvise a bit here. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm gonna scroll up. It's creating a Python script. Okay, it's checking inside this directory. Nice little doc at the start. Seems to be storing them in JSON. Okay, and it's mercifully a relatively small file. Oh, this is cool. It's made the script executable with change mod. And oh wow, this is really cool. It's checking if it works correctly by actually calling Python to-dos help. All this is kind of the combination of an agent and Z giving the agent tools. All in all, very nice for development. So it added my first to-do and added another important task. Then it listed and saw them both. I'm going to accept all that. Then I'm going to close this AI, close this AI little tab and yeah, bring up this new file. Where is it? To-dos.py. Cool. All right, I'm going to use the outline tool to find the function to add to-dos and then go down about 10 lines. And I want to insert the debugger here. That's F9. Now I'm going to bring up the menu to run programs from within or commands from within Z. And in this case, I'm going to choose the launch tab. And here I'm going to basically specify how to run the program. So the debugger, debug.py, which is automatically selected, is right. And now I'm going to give it the program name, to-dos.py, add feed my cat. I don't specify Python here, that's kind of implied. So, okay, let's go. Let's hit start. Now you can see we are inside the program. The existing to-dos, my first to-do, you can see it there, and the created at, etc., etc. And we can see the frames, main frame, the lower frame. I can check out what each value is from within here. Feedfish is the most recent one that happened off screen. We have a text variable here, feed my cat, the latest one. Yeah, you can see all variables. Basically, it has everything you need in a nice visual way, and this is a really nice thing to have within the editor. And of course, I can step into the next function, step into save to-dos, etc., etc. Or I can let the program run to completion. Then if I want to re-trigger the debugger, I can just press, I believe, F5, and the whole thing starts again. I want to emphasize that all this debugging stuff comes without any configuration. I didn't have to do something to get debug.py working. This file didn't need to be modified. There was no extension to install in the editor. It just worked. That pretty much concludes today's video. I hope that you were able to get a taster for how Z works and what the user experience is like. I hope you could also see that it's a very fast editor despite being quite fully featured. I hope you could also see that it works right out of the box with very little config. I have only one extension installed as far as I know, which is for spelling. None of the stuff I showed you today required special config. And it's basically, yeah, it works out of the box and it's pretty easy to learn. I've only been using it for, I don't know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and I already feel pretty good at it, especially because they did such a good job at bringing over the Vim key bindings. I don't have to go and relearn everything. It did take me maybe a weekend to get used to stuff. And in that process, I created my own cheat sheet. I've provided that here in case that's valuable to you. It's especially targeted at Vim users. Also, the documentation on Zed's own website is also pretty decent. You can check that out. Lastly, if you have any requests for something we can cover in a future video, let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.